You know, being in the industry, I hear nightmare stories all the time about homeowners that have a new system, a new furnace installed, and it starts underperforming or starts having issues within a couple of years. Way too soon. You just spent a few $1,000s having this thing replaced, and you've heard it should last 10, 15, 20 years. Why is it having issues? So what we're talking about on this episode of In the House today is how to ensure when it's time to replace it that you are having the thing installed properly. Let's go. In the House is an Any Hour Services podcast where we talk about things that homeowners should know when it comes to repairing or maintaining their homes. I'm Mike Wilson, and Kevin is in the house today. He is the manager over the HVAC install department at Any Hour Services. And if anyone's going to know and be able to help us know how to know if someone is installing or ensure that we're getting the right install, it's going to be Kevin. And here's the thing, this is going to be it might be a little bit difficult topic to unpack because not everyone's in a situation right now where they are having their system installed today. And once it starts being installed, like, you've kind of made the decision on who you're going to use. So a lot of this is going to be preliminary work, like the way, because you're not going to know how to make sure that the sheet metal is being bent correctly or how the airflow is being calculated. And we're not going to try and tell you how to do all of those technical things. So we're going to try and tell you some things that you can do in the beginning part of your decision making to help you ensure that your system is going to be installed properly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first tell us a few, not horror stories, but back up what I said in the beginning with some experiences that you've had.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I've been in on some furnaces that they'd been installed for, I think the worst one was about 1.5 years.
Wow.
And, year and a half, it's still got manufacturer warranty and all that kind of stuff. But I tell you, the manufacturer doesn't want to do anything if it wasn't put in right. You know what I mean? But yeah, typically the issues that you run into are things were done wrong. So it impedes the natural functionality of what the furnace is trying to do, be it airflow or the exhaust on it, things like that. But yeah, it's amazing. If you take something that's supposed to send a certain quantity of air through it and you choke it way down, it is amazing how poorly they'll run and how quickly it'll kill them.
Right. You think about your body. You are designed. I just took a deep breath as I was doing that, think about how good it feels to get the amount of air that you need. And then imagine trying to breathe through a straw. You're just not going to get enough oxygen and enough air for your body to function the way that it's supposed to. And if you continued to function and operate that way, it'll shorten your lifespan and it'll dramatically decrease your performance, because then all of a sudden when you try to exercise or walk around, your body requires more air and you're still only getting a little bit. Would you say that airflow restrictions and airflow is the biggest issue when it comes to a system being installed improperly?
I would say so. And a lot of it is people don't do their due diligence at the beginning to make sure that the ductwork has enough airflow, the heat vents are done right. And a big one is the return. You can get different choke points in the return as it's coming back. And that's just the air that's flowing back towards the furnace to be able to, continue the cycle.
Sure. And when you say people don't do the due diligence, how is a homeowner supposed to do that due diligence? How are they supposed to know?
It's a good question. Honestly, I wouldn't put that on the homeowner. I would put that on the people that are coming out, going through the system, making sure that, that's their job, right? That's what you're hiring them for. They should be going through and making sure that system is going to work.
So when you said people aren't doing the due diligence, you were talking more about the person coming out there that's installing it.
Whoever it is that's coming out and looking through your system.
Gotcha. So talk to me. Let's just dive right in. A homeowner that is faced with replacing their furnace. It's winter right now. So if you're replacing, there's a lot more furnace replacements going on right now than air conditioner replacements. You're replacing a furnace. How do you ensure that the thing is going to be installed properly?
I think it goes back to your process in picking a contractor, whoever it is that's going to come in and actually do the install for you. I think you always hear about oh yeah, my cousin's buddy's father-in-law's brother, does blank. He'll come and give you a great deal. That story like that always scares me, because who knows what that guy, maybe they're perfectly fine. Maybe their company they work for is awesome. But I tell you, more often than not, it seems like there's something that's not going to be in place.
Something that is very common, if you're a homeowner, you think it is good practice to get multiple bids. And I think that some people are mistaken, or they're misguided in why you're doing that. I think a lot of people do that because they think, I just want to get the best price. When I look at getting 3 bids or getting however many multiple bids I'm going to get, if I want to have the thing last as long as possible and maximize my investment in this piece of equipment, it's not just about getting the lowest price you can. It's about making sure that the thing is installed properly. And so getting multiple bids is your opportunity to interview and picking the right companies. Because if you're picking companies just based off of price, there is usually a reason why someone is dramatically lower than everyone else. And I don't want to accuse them of cutting corners or doing things like that, but if they are actually staying in business, there are things that they're not doing, whether they're underpaying their people, whether they, are not reinvesting in the company, whether they are using lower quality materials that are going to, there's a lot of reasons. But I can't recommend enough that when you are getting multiple bids, don't judge them just off of the price, because having just gone through a major remodel in my house, me and my wife, it's hard not to sit there and be like, well, they want this much for it, and this person wants this much, and to want so badly to wish that everything was equal across the board, and to just be able to make a decision off price.
You're going to pay for it, whether you pay for it now and have it done right, or actually probably pay extra later on in doing it again.
Man, talk about a quote card that somebody's going to need to pull out for a piece of micro content. Mr. Kevin's face, and you're going to pay for it, whether you pay for it now or you pay for it later.
Patent pending.
Patent pending. Okay, so let's go into it. So we are choosing some companies. How do I know that I'm choosing the right company if I'm not just basing the judgment off of price? And I'm not saying price shouldn't factor in.
Oh no, it should definitely. I mean, everybody has a budget, hopefully, and I would probably guess that most of your companies, though, that are up and up and doing things the way that they're supposed to and are going to install it right, are going to have multiple options, a low end option, a middle option, and a high end option. And they probably have something that'll fit most budgets.
Okay.
The couple of things that I would make sure that I was looking for is when they come in and start looking around, you can kind of get a feel for, are they treating my house in a professional way? For me, that's key. Did they show up professionally? Did they show up to be professional? I've seen so many times, and I think that contractors, for good reason, have kind of a bad image, because you got a lot of guys that show up not the best. They don't give the best face to the industry. You know what I mean?
Right.
What are they looking at in my house? And I would ask certain questions. Around here, we're in the Rocky Mountain States, and so we have what's known as the RMGA certification, Rocky Mountain Gas Association certification. Ask them, hey, do your technicians, or you require people to have this certification? It's the certification that makes it so that it allows you to know that the people in your house know how to do things right and safe, right?
Right.
It has specifically to do with gas, venting, and those types of things.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned, one of the biggest issues is airflow. And from conversations that we've had before, I know that one of the biggest airflow issues is that there is a duct sizing issue, right? So how does someone know that those issues are being addressed in the beginning?
As a homeowner, it's all about questions.
Okay.
Ask them questions. Hey, do you have a duct sizing specialist who's going to take a look at my system and make sure that I have the right amount of air, the right amount of capacity? I've been to tons of homeowners' houses where this wasn't addressed. And, there's all sorts of stuff that's done wrong. You show up to a house and let's say, and we're just going off, there's got to be a lot of stuff that they actually have to be able to understand. I'm talking from the contractor's point of view. And one of the things, especially around here, is things are different at our elevation. Your static pressures are different because the atmosphere is just not as thick, And so to be able to use the right charts and different things, the tools that allow us to know what should be used where and how much air can flow through what, And as a customer, a homeowner, I wouldn't feel bad asking, hey, could you show me some of the stuff you use to figure out the right size of furnace?
Right. That's actually a good point, is like, hey, can you explain to me how you are doing this?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need to understand it, but
just show some curiosity in the tools that are used.
Right. If you've dealt with people at all for any extended period of time, it's pretty easy to spot somebody that's just like, that knows what they're talking about and somebody that doesn't.
Oh yeah.
And I like to tell people, like, don't ignore like for lack of a better word, like the feelings that you have when you're meeting with somebody. If you feel like they're like blowing smoke or making things up, or maybe they're not as experienced as you wish they were, like, don't ignore that, because that company is putting their best foot forward. Right. And so, like, if their best foot is like not impressive, guess what? It's probably not going to be impressive after that either. And so that's a good point. So pay attention to if the company or the contractor is asking you questions, and you have some questions ready. Some things that you should like think about is like how, like, you're probably replacing this thing because it broke or it's about to break. And so it's like you feel like you're under pressure to make this decision, but try to step back from the stress and the anxiety of making this decision and think, how has the thing performed for you over the years? When we're talking about furnaces, like in the winter, do you feel like it's keeping you warm enough? Do you feel like you've got hot and cold spots around the house? Do you feel like you're constantly having to go to the thermostat and adjust it? Like, think about how you've interacted with that and make sure. I mean, for me, I probably would hold that information to the vest and see if the contractor asked me to see if they're like digging deep enough to understand, because it's not just about it.
It's not one size fits all.
Right.
It is not.
If someone comes in to your house and just goes down to the furnace, looks at what you have, and quotes you for the exact same equipment, are they doing what they need to do?
No, not even close. In fact, back in the day, there was a lot of differences between, so engineering on furnaces you look at everything. Things get better, right? Phones get better, cars get better. Furnaces have gotten way better. The way they achieve efficiencies and all that kind of stuff. And so back in the day, even if it was sized right, what may have took 120,000 BTUs may only need 80, may have used a lot more. It seems like what they used to do in the past was they'd try and heat it up a lot extra and just push it as hard as they could, which is one of the reasons why we end up with so many cracked heat exchangers. That excess heat that builds it up. You can only take something and expand it and contract it so many times metal-wise before it starts to split.
Right. Or like at my house, you set your thermostat at a certain temperature and it blows hot air, but then it stops blowing hot air before it actually reaches temperature, and then it blows hot air, and it like is doing that off and on thing because it's sized too big and it's like overheating and blowing your high limit switch. And so anyway, but okay, so back to, we want to make sure that this thing is installed properly. We are assessing this contractor that's out here giving us a bid. What are some other things that we need to like be watching out for?
Gosh, you know what I would do first and foremost? I would pull up their Google reviews. I mean, if people are having a good experience with them or a bad experience, they're going to express it online. That's the day and age we live in now.
Right.
And if you pull something up and they've got, middle of the road reviews, well, probably expect middle of the road experience,
Right.
The one thing that I always like to point out, because installing a furnace, there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, there's different code upgrades in most cases that have to happen. And you need somebody in there who is going to be able to carry you through. Now, in the event, we always hope that everything is going to go perfectly smooth. And sometimes you might have something that may occur, and has that company got the backing to go back out there and take care of those issues after the fact as well. You know, that's a huge deal, you know, and I think that's one of the things on some of these companies that don't really know what they're doing is they come in, do their thing, and then they're gone and you never hear from them again.
Do you feel like that's a good question to ask the contractor is like, okay,
what's your warranty process?
What happens when something goes wrong?
Yeah. I mean, and maybe it's, let's say you're purchasing a 10-year parts and labor warranty on your stuff. And in 5 years, something happens. What's the process? You know, and if they give you a blank look, you know, might be good red flags. You know what I mean?
Right. What about, okay, so let's say that we've talked to these companies. We feel good about the one that we are going to choose. They have, we've checked their Google reviews. They have a lot of reviews. They have a good average star rating. We felt good meeting with the person. They asked a lot of questions. We asked a lot of questions. They seem technically competent. Is there anything, like, what's the point of no return? Like, when do we need to, like, because, I mean, even after the sales guy, like, you know, does his thing and you talk to him and you, like, say, okay, cool, I'm going with you. Like, are there any judgments you need to make in between the time when that happens and before they rip out your old system? Because that feels like that might be a point of no return.
I would say once they've come in your house and they're ripping stuff out, you're probably committed.
Gotcha.
I mean, I guess there could be the scenario where something strange could happen, but
is there something that should happen, like, to, if nothing else, to reinforce that they made the right decision? Like, what should happen when the installers show up?
You know, it's hard to speak for anyone other than our company. You know what I mean? Our installers show up and they are professionally dressed. They should be addressing people by certain ways. Everything that we do is to try and make a homeowner feel good about the decision that they've made, because we are that company, you know, and I know that, and my installers know that, right? We are the right choice. And I think if you get somebody who pulls up and they seem unsure about stuff and they don't really know what's what, I might get a little bit of cold feet myself.
So is there a walkthrough before the actual install starts?
Our guys are supposed to go in, go through what's been sold, what the people are expecting, and talk about expectations during the install too. Mm-hmm. You know, hey, we're going to make some noise. We may have to turn off power. Go through those kinds of things, you know.
What about prep for the install? Is there any kind of thing that you're doing to try and protect the home? Or from like the, I don't know, like.
Yeah, our guys, we come in, we wear shoe covers, we lay down drop cloths to, you know, pathways to where we're going to be working, an area cloth around the area so we can just keep things protected as much as we can. You know what I mean? Is
there any kind of systematic, like, checklist that your people have to, like, go through? Like,
Ours do. We hold pretty high standards with our installers, and they are supposed to go out, do that pre-walkthrough, all the way up to the end where they're supposed to have a post-job checklist where they'll go through item by item, make sure things are done, so that when we leave, we can walk away knowing that things are going to function. You know.
Gotcha.
Now, that being said, there's always the crazy time that something could happen. What's that company going to do afterwards if something does happen? You know, I tell you. You want a company that's going to be willing to bend over backwards to make sure things are the way that they need to be.
Once you've made that decision and you've done the due diligence and stuff, I tell you what, if there's anyone listening or watching and you've got questions or things like that, like, you know, put some comments down below. Let us know if you've had a bad experience and what you wish you knew. Like, what would you go back and tell yourself, like, you know, before it happened, or if you had to do it again. The older I get, the more life experience I have where I'm like, okay, well, when I do it the next time, this is what I'm going to do. And so one of my hopes with the podcast is that we can take our years of experience and the things that we've seen and because a lot of times we're going to people's homes, like, sometimes it's on the worst day because their system broke down or something bad happened. And so we're there and we hear all of these stories about, like, this thing was just replaced a year and a half ago. And, like, that company doesn't exist anymore, or all of those things. Like it's heartbreaking to hear those things sometimes, and so we want to share those experiences to give you to share other people's experiences so that you possibly don't have to go through those things. But any final advice for somebody that wants to give themselves the best chance of having their system installed properly?
Gosh, I don't know. I think that we've kind of really hit it with the questions, you
Do you feel like price plays into it at all? Like, how much should it cost to like have a furnace installed?
Yeah, I definitely think price, because like I was saying before, everybody's budget's going to be different. And a lot of times there's so many different reasons to replace a piece of equipment too, from it's broken to, hey, I just want something that's new. How often do you replace your phone because it's broken? Usually it's because you want the newest, neatest thing.
Right.
Believe it or not, there's people that do that with their furnace. And so, you've got a pretty wide range varying on what's going to be and needed on the thing and different code upgrades that need to take place. But I mean, you could be easy 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that realm. It just kind of depends.
My favorite answer.
Mike hates it when I say depends.
But I mean, the more like if your system is sized properly and there's no airflow issues and you're coming in, you're swapping out, it might just be a few $1,000.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah,
like
totally could be, like I say, there usually is going to be an affordable option that can fit and be tailored to fit most people's budgets.
Right.
A lot of times the issue that you run into if it gets a little bit more expensive is, maybe your ductwork is just horrendously put in. Maybe you do have tons of things that need to be changed with the flues and gas and things like that, but more often than not, there's something you can do that's within people's budget and price range.
Right. And if someone comes in and their price is higher, like ask questions, have them justify why that price is that way, because you may have somebody that came in and said, hey, it's going to be, $2,500 to replace the furnace, and then another company comes in and they say, well, it's actually going to be $6,000 to replace it because of we've got to do these extra things. Did that other company even see those extra things?
I think the key word to remember is due diligence. Does that contractor come in and do due diligence, and does it make sense?
As much as I wish there was a little bit more meat to it, it really is like doing your due diligence, like meeting with some companies beforehand. Make sure you feel good about the company, then make sure you feel good about the price, make sure you understand what you're paying for, and then make sure you got a company that's going to stand behind their product and be there to take care of it.
I think it's always good to just reiterate the importance of your choice. You know what I mean? Because on a furnace you have airflow, and that's what people usually think of, but you also have exhaust that could potentially be harmful if it's not done right. And you have gas with an ignition source, electricity, right? It all needs to be done properly, right? And so it's important that it's done right.
My favorite way to describe furnaces, we still heat our homes by piping gas into a metal cabinet in the basement and lighting it on fire.
Yeah.
And then using a fan to like blow the heat.
Sometimes the old ways are the best ways.
Well, there you go. Again, thanks, Kevin, for being here. Anyone that's listening or watching, thank you so much for the attention. We'll be back next Tuesday with a new episode of In the House. If you'd like to know more about Any Hour Services, visit anyhourservices.com. I've been your host, Mike Wilson, and you've been listening to In the House.